got a lot of static.
Alright, so let's have a look at another component we could add to this whole animation. And then this one here actually kind of shows that additional element. And that's a meteor, which I've rendered also in Carrara. You can, pick your 3D program of preference. I think I will post this as an animated brush or as a straight AVI animation on our website. The idea is basically to have a fairly lengthy or a looping animation. Fairly lengthy animation, long enough that you're not going to see it if it jumps from the end back to the front. And what I'll do is create something perhaps like this. Let's have a look at some of the AVIs that I have. This one here, glowing meteor, assault on Earth. There you go. Alright, so this one's a 499 frame, 500 frame animation, and you see these meteors going across. Right now, let's have a look at how to do that. This was basically painted. I painted these meteors across the existing animation of the globe. Right, so what we would start from might be something like, or let's see, which one might we take? If we take number 6 here. Might be, for instance, this one here, where we have the very slowly spinning globe. We have some backgrounds we've added and so on. Right, or perhaps we'll take one even before. Let's take the one from session 2 or 3. Let's take this one, and there we go. So we have just the globe, and we want to see how to add those meteors. Alright, so one thing you can do, first of all, let's take a look at the meteors. Let's go and load the AVI of that glowing meteor and have a look at it so we understand what we're dealing with. 600 frames, and you can probably see here there's some black background that this was rendered on. Not perfect for color keying because there might be some black regions here, but in this case it's not totally black. We have a little bit of a dark gray, so we can probably get a fairly successful selection of just the meteor if you want it to be transparent against the background. So what we'll test that theory. Let's go with the magic wand and just click here. And sure enough, we get a fairly good outline. Now there's a little bit of tolerance that we need to give it so that it goes into closer to the edge here, because there's probably a transition where it's going from totally black to slightly black. And so what you'll want to do is set a little bit of the tolerance here, or at least give it perhaps the anti-alias that comes closer. Or perhaps without the anti-alias, but a little bit of tolerancing. Now if you go too high on tolerance, it's going to start breaking into the dark gray there. So this is a little tricky one where you need to go and test it, something like this. Okay, so that gives us a good certainty that we can probably make this transparent because we can select it. By what mechanism? Well, by color keying. Alright, so when we actually do that, we're not going to do that here, because as we move across, it's a different selection every frame. And so the place where we do that is in the brush. So we need to load the same animation in the brush. That's really where we'll do the work. It's a custom brush world here. So, oops, it moves down a little bit below our capture area here. There's an option. Oh no, it's actually right here. AVI to animate a brush. Alright, so that option allows us to load the exact same file, the glowing meteor. That's our 600 frame AVI file. 256 by 256 and 600 frames. Let's go and load that into the custom brush. Now the brush may be very long and maybe we don't need the whole thing, but in this case we got plenty of room to go, so let's go load the entire animation into the custom brush. And you might want to store it before loading another. So storing it means that we go to the brush menu and use the store and manage option. That way we have that brush here and we can work with other brushes as well. Let me go and temporarily clear the alpha selection mask that we still had there. And notice now that I can paint with that. And as I'm painting, perhaps I'm going to change the step size here to an even smaller value. As I'm painting with this, the meteor is tumbling around. It's also a little bit blurry because it's not fully opaque. So let me go and change the opacity of that. There you go. The preview now is showing it fully opaque. Let me reduce the step even more, all the way down to maybe just 2 or 3, and now you see it tumble really quickly as I'm just painting, right? I mean, I'm painting around here, I'm painting around here, but it's still contained in the opaque black background. I didn't do my color keying yet, right? So that's the next step. I need to key it, and you can use the same tool here that we have, the custom brush pickup, with a right click on that. That will allow you to key on the current brush. So let's go and right click on that, and you see a preview, and you can go and pick the colors that you want to turn transparent. If you pick the red, then all the reds will be transparent. If you pick the gray, then the gray on the meteor will be transparent. But if you click the black here, then just the background will be transparent. And you can make it a little bit tighter, or you could make it a little bit more lenient, and then of course you got too much tolerance and the whole meteor turns transparent, which by the way can turn make it an interesting effect if you want to make it look like it's glass. You know, this was melted sand, and through the explosion it turned into glass, so it's semi-transparent. So you could do that. But what I'm going to do here is get as close as possible to seeing it opaque, and then just one over a little bit. It's going to keep the transparent background, and the rest of it will probably be as opaque as we need it. Alright, so at that point I need to, I can verify that when I'm painting with it, indeed, the only thing that gets painted in here is the opaque part of the meteor. But what I do need to do now is store this brush, so because this one here I probably don't need anymore. Let's go and store this brush, right? And so this one I can toss. I could also save it as a custom brush, custom animated brush. Go to this brush and animated brush and save it. That one you get an A and B file, the animated brush. Another thing you can also do is go to, if you look in the brush options here, there's the browse media, and you can go and add that, create a folder for your new custom brushes that you want to add there. There's lots of other brushes in here already and different categories, so you can create folders for new categories and so on. But I'm going to skip that right now, because what I'm really interested in is simply painting with this over my other animation. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with this. I mean, you can go and mirror that, for instance, mirror this, and so anything you're painting is mirrored along the vertical. And you know, now with the movie Prometheus coming out, you might want to see some alien-esque creatures coming out of that. You can make it mirrored in both directions. And why is this? There you go, system update again. Alright, so there's a lot of other things you can do with that, but what we want to do now here is let's clear the mirror and go and load our animation of the globe that we had in the background. So let's go and load. Let's go and open, what was it, number 5 or 6? Let's take number 4. Let's see where we are with that one. Alright, so that one is our globe that's spinning ever so slowly, and we'd now like to paint that meteor over it, but not like this, because when we're doing this, it's painting over the current frame. What we'd like to do instead, let me undo that, U for undo or Control Z. What you can do, instead of just painting over it, you can also paint with the Alt key down. So I'm gonna go and use the Alt key, and as I'm painting, let me paint on the outside first. One thing you notice, as I'm painting, the globe is turning. That's basically what it's doing, is it's advancing frame for frame. Every time that I move a little bit, it's advancing. So I can actually do that and paint my meteor, for instance, going from the lower right all the way to the upper left corner here. So I'm going to go and paint it along this, but I'm going to go and do that with the Alt key down. Alright, so undo that, and now press and hold the Alt key down, hold the Alt key and paint. And as I'm painting, you see the meteor going. Actually, there's a whole slew of meteors coming now because it's going so quickly. So maybe that was not the right way to do it. So let's go and undo that, or just load the animation in again. Maybe I'm taking a different one. Let's take number 2. That one is a little bit bigger. And one thing I'm going to do is this time increase the step size, because that is going to affect how quickly that meteor is showing at the next step, right? So if I'm doing this, there you go, you see there's fewer steps than we had before. So we have it appear to move a little bit faster across the entire frame. Alright, now, so let's do one like that, undo this, and have the Alt key going from right to left. There you go. So now this time, we have an animation where this meteor kind of goes right in front. Now we want another meteor that's going to go from bottoms up, but it's going to, and let's zoom out a little bit, from bottoms up, but it's going to go slower because we want to make it look like it's farther away. So what you do, first of all, you change the size. You can do that right here in the managed copy of the brush. You can change the size to maybe 30% or so, 28-ish. If you need to fine tune it, you have now those new controls to go value by value increments, and then just to test it, you can see that's a much smaller size. Okay, so undo that, and now go and also perhaps reduce the step distance, so it's gonna take longer. It's gonna take smaller steps, so it's gonna take longer to reach from one end to the other than the larger, closer meteor. Alright, so Alt key down. I'm gonna do basically going like this, right? So undo, and now Alt key down, and there we go. And now here again, it's a case where the steps are perhaps a little bit too close together, and we actually have a whole slew of those coming in, right? Now there's one more thing we want to do, and that's to have so I mean basically we can have this, you know, going across all the time. Let's keep the step distance at reasonable size, 18, and paint one that go this way, and then one that go this way, and then one this way, and then soon enough you see just like a slew of meteors at different sizes. Let's go change the size. You can change the size here too, by the way, but that requires that the brush settings here indicate that custom brushes are indeed allowing the custom brush transform, because that takes a little bit of time if you do that on the fly as we paint. Here it's done as you change it. It's changed once and then it works with that. It still has the original, but the stored copy does the calculations of the new size once, and then you're done and ready to go with it. So whereas if you do it here, it's a little bit more time consuming. Still, it's probably fast enough and you can go do that. Alright, so now let's do one that's going to impact. So it's going to come in fairly big initially. Let's go and reset that, and it's going to be pretty big initially, but we want it to kind of arch in and make a turn and then kind of crash up here. So what we'll do is we'll need a custom brush keyframer, right? So we have a tool here for that, which is in the animation menu, the brush keyframer. And then with that, okay, ignore the aspect ratio. You can resize that if you want it flat or circulate or whatnot. But most importantly, the brush is now loaded. You don't see it quite yet, but you can just drag around and you'll see it. And you can have it come in from the right side here. And what you want to do is have it come all the way around here and then stop and then kind of go in and crash into Europe. There, it's translation world this week. Let's go and translate that. Right, so let's make it a little bit bigger. Right, there we can change the size to even bigger than the original, and perhaps even rotate it if you want a different angle initially. Although you notice the shining, the light is not dynamically redone. This has been pre-rendered now. So if the sun is shining from the upper left area, you'll probably want to have it in that orientation as well. What you can do is change the opacity for any reason you need to do that. For instance, as it's going farther away and disappears into the continent, shortly before that you may want to change the opacity. Alright, so last one, let's go and take one keyframe here, and then we'll bring it all the way here at this location. So somewhere around here, we'll move it to about this place, and of course that's where we need to change the size. Make it smaller, and keyframe that. Right, and then about here, we'll definitely make a change in turn, and also make it smaller, even more. There you go, keyframe that. And then shortly after that, somewhere around here, we wanted to kind of go really quickly into, let's go Spain, there, Madrid. And hola Jose, cuenta, ¿cómo estás? One of our beta testers here somewhere in Spain. I forget at the moment where exactly, but I'm sending this him as a greeting, as a thank you message there. Alright, so let's go really small, tiny. It's a big meteor. It's going to crash and make a big bang here, so let's not disappear altogether, but we can perhaps have the opacity go faded away. Right? So that's going to be at this point. Let's keyframe that, and then from then on we don't need it anymore, so you can keep the opacity all the way down to 0. Just drag the opacity until you know it's no longer visible. Now, okay, so now that would be over here. Actually, just one over from here on. Keep the scale down, keep the opacity down, and keyframe that. And then from there on, it will just be remaining invisible for the rest of the animation. Alright, so let's go and render that. And so what you see now is, whoa, that's quick, that's already done. I'm on an i7 here. Alright. Okay, and we have our animation. There you go. So this is a little fast one here. This guy here, follow how it's moving to the left, and then change, and boom. Now here we need a big flash, a splash. Okay, so here we need a little light, Here we need what we call the lens flares. So let's go to the timeline editor and scroll on the files filters menu, scroll down to the bottom where the lens flares are, right? And we will now go and look at the flare settings and decide which way is a good way to make this big splash. Maybe this one here, that looks kind of scary. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll place it. We need to find out where that meteor went, right? So we know it's this one here, right there. Okay. Right now we don't need it. Around here is when we enter the atmosphere, so that's where we need it, right there. Click on that. But we don't need it that bright yet. Okay, so just before that we need it off at 0 level and keyframe that. And then we need a little bit. Let's go and make this wider, by the way. You can see better what's happening. You can also zoom in, by the way. Here I can zoom in so you get more leeway, more detailed navigation through these key steps. Alright, so the next thing is we need the next one here. We start going in brightness. Let's find out where we are. Just around there. Let's position it a little bit more to the right, and there you go, and keyframe that. And so now as we go into the final step here, we'll have perhaps a couple of frames over, just around here, we'll have the brightness increase. Right, there you go, very slightly, and keyframe that. And then at the very end, or near the end, just around here, suddenly there is a big impact. Right, so we have a big flash, something like that, and keyframe that. And then towards the end, of course, it fades off. We need to move it a little bit more still, though, so make it a little bit to the right and fade it off. Now I don't have many frames left, but that's okay, it'll give us an idea. Alright, so we can navigate here and see how it's suddenly starting to burn and brightness. And then we could actually do a little bit more work if we didn't want those lens flares to show quite yet. So I mean, there's other ways to improve that. But this is a good first look. Let's go and render that. Apply. Right. And there we go. So we've now added also a little bit of a smoke trail, so to speak, or a splash to that. And let's see what it looks like. See? Boom! But that goes fast. Now this is what we might actually need to slow down. I wasn't working on the slowed down version. I think I was working on the original speed animation. So this is definitely going too fast. In fact, that would be a good one to do additional motion prediction animation here and slowing that down. Right, let's go to the motion prediction module and say we need this 3 times slower. Let's do a quick test run and go 148 frames. Yeah, some of it needs a little bit fine-tuning and so on, but I mean that's for another exercise, another tutorial. We've done this before, been there, done that. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope this gives you some good ideas on how to add those meteors and perhaps add some other Hollywood special effects like those lens flares, splashes and stuff like that. Alright, thanks again, and happy howling and waffling with Project Dog Waffle, PD Pro 8, and this is Broomhead.